Oh, it's funny. We're doing this. Too many Zoom calls now.
You're doing what?
We're doing too many Zoom calls.
Too many Zoom calls.
You know what the worst thing about Zoom calls is?
Your mug.
I see my face all day long. That is no joke.
But
I didn't realize that I had all these old lines. I didn't realize I was old.
Notice my lack of. Notice my lack of.
Give it here.
Oh no, I just had it fixed. Gotta get that shit fixed.
I'm Josh Sigman, and I'm a mortgage lender. I'm also a geek for money, not just earning it and saving it, but literally everything about it. I love that money has rules. It has its truths. I love investment strategies, and I love making money work for us. For so many, money is emotional. For me, it's logical, like a puzzle. My passion is also helping others with their money. I love looking at people's finances, dissecting their puzzle, and rebuilding with strategy and purpose, and I'm really good at it. I'm making this podcast about my money strategies, not the things that are written in books or sold in programs. It's a podcast outlining the lessons I've learned and used for the past 15 years. These strategies help me and those who use them save more, give more, create wealth, and retire early. Let me teach you how to build your net worth. You ready? Welcome to Sigman Sense. All right, let's unfreeze the face. A-E-I-O-U, A-E-I-O-U. Okay.
I'm so excited.
Here we are.
Are you still getting shit done?
Getting shit done.
Are
round
you?
2, yes. We're going to go round 2, the continuation of how to get shit done. Welcome back to Sigman Sense.
Yes.
What day is today?
I don't know. Friday.
I know what day it is. It's the last day of my daughter's youth. Tomorrow's my oldest daughter turns 13, and I'm crying every day.
Dun.
My wife and I were on a walk last night, and literally she just stopped and burst into tears. I was like, wait a second.
You should.
So I got up this morning and
You should be crying.
I told Aubrey, so last day as a kid, what do you want me to make you? So she wanted pancakes and bacon and eggs and all the good stuff.
With a smiley face? Boop, boop. Zzz.
Of course, for kids.
Yeah.
So yeah, here we are, and we want to do the
gosh.
continuation. So hopefully you are up to date. This is the second part of a 2-part series about how to get shit done. And hopefully you listen to the first one first, because that's the whole point, and there was some homework behind it.
Yeah.
So, just as a reminder, if you just are tuning in for your first time, first one is really first step was to identify your goals, to get things started. And 2 is some tips to set yourself up for success, whether it be some education or, listening to podcasts or YouTubes and things like that. So here we go on to step 3 through 5. And I'm super excited about it because it's just one of those things that, whenever you listen to this, you're probably, a couple months after COVID started, by the time you listen to this, and people are starting to go back to work, and cities are opening and states are opening, and no political statements here whatsoever. It's just, I find that a lot of people fell off the bandwagon of whatever their goals were for the year, right? Like it's interesting to me. I would love to do a national poll to find out how many people are still on track for whatever their New Year's resolution was, or income goals or savings goals or physical goals. Think about people like Olympians.
Yeah.
The Olympians, they had their Olympics move back all year.
A whole year.
So hopefully they didn't just sit home and eat bombs and Cheetos.
Bombs?
What are you, making fun of the old person?
No. Bomb is our email distribution system, but bonbons are...
Oh, that's true.
are what you
that's possible.
pop when you're
I could be wrong. Well, they might be binge watching bomb videos.
Especially if they're ours.
You never know. So the whole point is that one of the things that you and I have spoken about a lot with our business partners, with my mortgage business, my mortgage company, is reevaluating goals. Are you on track? Are you not on track? Do you need to change them? Do you need to increase them? There are some people that are crushing it. I was listening to an awesome YouTube video about a week ago, and it was super inspirational. I shared it with a lot of people on my team, and the video was talking about how there's certain people that are leaving this COVID-19, stay at home with a new language under their belt.
Right.
And some people have learned how to start playing a new instrument, and some people in business are actually doing really well. And obviously there's a lot of people that it's the opposite. There's a lot of people that got furloughed, and a lot of people that lost their jobs too. The whole point is that you got dealt a new deck of cards,
Yeah,
and so you got to make some adjustments. So we set ourselves up for success was round 2, and if your goals haven't been looked at, make sure you go back and relook at them now that you're coming out of COVID. Hopefully permanently.
And I'm loving this. I love that we taught this class so early on in the year because I really feel like we have revisited this content in our normal lives over and over and over. And so it's just really neat. And if anything, I want to just make sure that people know that that stutter steps are okay. And they're...
Well, it's not just okay. It's going to happen.
It's going to happen. It's going to happen. And it's just a matter of not letting it completely deflate you and getting back on track as fast as you can. So that way you truly don't lose all of the forward progress that you made. Because if you sit in that rut for too long, then you really are starting back from ground zero, which is hard to do. So getting back on track as quickly as possible is huge.
Yeah, that actually reminds me of one of my favorite stories just because in coaching, I run across these a lot. I think this came from a book. I think it came from The 7 Decisions or maybe Take the Stairs, 2 of my favorite books. But it's the buffalo story, buffaloes versus the cows.
The buffalo.
The buffalo?
When KK was little,
she called them buffaloes?
She called them buffaloes, and she used to draw buffaloes all the time.
That's really funny.
I don't know why it was her go-to doodle. You want me to draw you a buffalo?
No, I'm good. Thank you, though. I appreciate it.
So cute.
Tangent. We're really on that.
I digress.
So the story goes, and it's actually an interesting, I guess it's a fact in this case. So you go back 150 years and you think about the Great Plains, Texas, Oklahoma, all the way up to North Dakota, and you had buffalo ranging, and then of course you have the introduction of cattle as well, and so you'd have those big long cattle trails. And one of the things that's super interesting is that every once in a while there'd be a northern would blow in. So imagine bad cold front coming in over the Rocky Mountains, coming into the Great Plains. And what's really interesting is that when that happened, a whole lot of cattle would die, but not a whole lot of buffalo would die. And people that have studied it basically determined 2 things. What happens is when that cold weather comes in, cattle naturally turn away from it and they walk away from the storm. Well, by doing so, they are stuck in the storm longer because if the storm is going from west to east and the cattle are walking from west to east, they just stay in the storm longer and they freaking die, right? On the flip side, for whatever reason, buffalo actually turn into the storm. So because they turn the storm, we can all now picture you've probably seen a painting or a picture at some point of a buffalo with that matted snow on its face. And it's because buffalo turn into the storm and they naturally walk towards the wind, and thus it gets them out of the storm faster. And so where I think we are in our country right now, when it comes to goals for business or personal, I think a lot of people have been derailed or are still in the midst of the fight, right? They're still unemployed. They're still furloughed. They're still, they were getting a good start in January on their budget. And then of course they had this weird thing dealt to them the last 90 days or so. And so the question is, are you being the cow or are you being the buffalo? Right? Are you dealing with it head on or are you just kind of ignoring it? And my pastor, Roy, he always tells me that we are either in a storm, we are coming out of the storm, or we're about to go into another storm.
Right.
So that goes back to what you said earlier, which is that there are going to be things that are going to be dealt. There's going to be obstacles along the way.
Right.
Just accept those as obstacles and understand it's not a roadblock. It is a road bump. Just go over the road bump and keep on moving. So we want to move on to step 3.
Let's do.
All right. So what I want to go in is step 3 now. So step 3 is a pretty straightforward one. It's recruiting accountability and support. Recruiting accountability and support. So here's why I think this is super important. I believe in coaching personally for a lot of reasons, but the primary reason is accountability. One of the jokes I make all the time is for self-employed people of any kind of small business owners or otherwise. You're your own boss, right?
Yeah.
And if you Google like bad bosses or a percentage of good bosses or percentage of bad bosses, what you'll find is that like 9 out of 10 bosses suck, right? So if you're self-employed, guess what? There's a 90% chance that you suck at being your own boss.
Not great.
And so, you think about that as kind of a thought process about why this is so important to get things done. When you look back at, goals that you've fallen off of versus working at a company that actually follows checklists and has somebody that's micromanaging you. You might hate being micromanaged. I hate being micromanaged.
Most people do.
But when you're micromanaged, what always happens?
Yeah, you get shit done.
The job gets done, right?
Correct.
So whatever that micromanaged job is, I mean, it's the same reason why, I'm not promoting McDonald's, but let's just be honest. The McDonald's tastes the exact same in San Antonio as it does in Florida, as it does in Moscow. It's because they're following checklists and there's some training that goes into it to make sure it actually gets done.
Yeah.
That's why fries taste the same here as over there. And so I think it's super important. I've had up to at one point 5 coaches at the same time. One for business, one for money, one for physicality, and one for spirituality.
And I think this is where you follow the wheel of life. Like we talked about in the beginning of episode 1, some general themes that we'll pull through on these topics. One of them is the wheel of life. And so there's 7 areas. And just by happenstance, you had a coach in
those
each.
areas. Yeah.
Yeah. And the way that I look at it. Yeah. And the way that I look at it is I want each one of those areas to become somewhat on autopilot so I can check that box and know that what I'm doing there, like I've got my shit buttoned up in that area. So money as an example, we're budgeting regularly. We meet with you once a month. We we met yesterday and, it's at this point, it's stay the course, don't screw it up. That to me deserves a check mark because I've got that piece. I've got a system. I'm in a routine that gets that piece handled. And so that's kind of where my mind goes as far as, how to get stuff done. How many check boxes can I put in each area of the wheel, right? Excuse, don't have to worry about it, but sorry.
Yeah. So no, it's perfect because, I don't know what the viewer or listener put down as their goals. That's not the point. What the coach's job is to help somebody achieve that goal. It doesn't matter what the goal is. And so when you go into recruiting that accountability and support, I always first start with, you better make sure that you have the right coach or accountability partner. Mm-hmm. And quite often it's not your spouse. Just let's start there.
Like almost always.
Right. Christy reminds me regularly that she's not one of my coaching students. So keep my opinions to myself, right? Do not coach me, right? This is good marital advice for the record.
100%.
For sure, don't coach your spouse.
Don't coach your spouse.
But what I would say is that you also have to make sure that whoever is helping you as an accountability partner actually has a vested interest and gives a shit about you hitting your goals, right? Because there's nothing worse than asking somebody for an accountability partner to help you, and then they never check in, they never ask, or they don't hold you accountable, or they let you slide, right?
Let you slide. That's a thing. It's like, come on.
So, the friend that is the yes person that always smiles, oh, it's okay. You'll do better next week. That's not what you're looking for, right? You want somebody that's a ball buster that's going to crush you. And it really is important. So let's talk about this step here, because when you're dealing with this, there's 3 or 4 methods that you can use, right? Like one is, find somebody else that's also has the same goal, because competition does motivate people, right?
Absolutely.
So if I want to lose 10 pounds and you want to lose 10 pounds and we say, hey, let's do a 60-day challenge. We're both going to lose 10 pounds. At the end of it, whoever loses loses the least amount of weight has to buy the other dinner.
Yeah.
And we get to go play together because we're friends anyways.
Yeah.
And then we're constantly chitter-chattering, constantly going to the gym together, constantly.
Yeah. And I think, one thing that's really hard, we've talked about this before, is if you have a friend that you always go and drink wine with, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I'm not going to drink for a month or whatever.
Yep.
What happens with that friend, as weird as it sounds? And not just drinking wine, but it kind of happens, across the board. So if you can recruit those people then
to do it with you,
one, it just makes it more fun, but 2, now you have a common goal, and that, that while you're doing this, you're not going to be separated from your group of core friends.
Yep. So, second one would be finding a mentor type person. Parents serve that role in some ways. Godparents do. There's just in life, there's some certain people that have their stuff together in the area that you're really pursuing. And so really literally going up to those people and just asking them for their help.
Yeah.
They might say no. And if they say no, that's okay. Don't not ask the next person. But right now I'm dealing with a guy. I will just say that he is the son of a very close friend of mine. Mm-hmm. And the son asked for my mentorship. And he's had some struggles with alcoholism and drug abuse, and he's a great sales guy, and he's at that age in life right now where he's really trying to get it together. And I've been working with him since November, I guess. And, you know, he'll have a spat where he's doing well and then he kind of disappears. But I care about the dad enough that I care about him enough that I don't let him off the hook. So I'll just check in on him and say, hey, where the hell's, you know,
good for you.
You're supposed to send me this form. Where is it? And then he went off the deep end. And this gentleman, you know, he actually went to rehab. So good for him. And he was gone for 30 days and couldn't get a hold of him. Well, there's a reason. He was literally gone.
Okay, yeah.
And first thing that happened when he came back about 6 weeks ago is he texted me and said, here's where I am. I apologize. This is what's going on. And I hope that you won't fire me as your, right? Which is just a awesome thing. And I was literally reading a text this morning in the car before I walked in here. Truck. I drive trucks in Texas. In the truck, I was reading this text from him, and it just made my heart warm. You know, he's been back on track for a few weeks now. And, you know, this week he's made 14 sales calls.
Awesome.
He worked out 5 days a week, 3 days a week. He worked out in the morning, not the evening, which he always struggled with because he was always hungover in the mornings.
Yeah.
And you know, but that's the second thing is I gain nothing in coaching him, but I want to help,
but you
right?
Want to help,
so there are people out there that you can probably reach out to, which would be a second one. Third one is you literally hire somebody.
Right.
Like when I got really serious 3 years ago, I guess, about getting back in shape because, you know, it's funny. I was looking, my daughter's turning 13 tomorrow. Last night we're looking at all these pictures. And what I'm really mad at myself is I was a fat blob in my 30s. Right. I was I was legitimately a fat blob in my 30s.
You really weren't though. Like
I was 40 pounds overweight. I can carry it, but I was still fat.
Luckily you're 6'5", so you can like, I mean, really put on weight. But it's what's interesting. What's interesting though is back in the day when I go back and look at videos and stuff, you are heavier, but I don't remember thinking you were heavy by any stretch of the imagination.
Oh, it bugs me. It bugs me. I look back at those pictures.
Because you've worked out for so long, so diligently.
Right.
But it's just interesting because
that's funny. I was mad at myself because like, man, I wasted my 30s. My 30s, I could have been doing more triathlons, more stuff, but I let myself get fat. My point was when I got really serious before I turned.
Don't look at it that way. You're going to need to look at what did you accomplish in
and
your
what I'm going to
30s.
do next. The lesson is that when I finally got serious about it is I paid for 2 trainers. 5 days a week for the last 2 years. Mm-hmm. I don't like spending the money and I don't like the accountability of getting up at 5 in the morning.
But it gets the job done.
But I knew that that's what was going to be required if I wanted to be in the best shape of my life on my 40th birthday. Yeah. Which I was able to do. I was able to get my body fat percentage down to the lowest it's been since college. I was able to get more importantly, my blood work. Our doctor, Dr. Mack, told me that it's the best that he's seen ever since he's been doing it. So, it goes back to finding that partner, finding the accountability partner, or paying for the accountability. And the last thing that I would add in this section, I'd like to get your final thoughts as well, is I do think that it's important to have either reward or punishment systems. Mm-hmm. You know, when you think about what usually motivates people, it's usually pressure, praise, or competition. So the first one example we gave us a good competition one. Pressure is something where if you're paying for it, usually you feel like you're wasting your time. Yeah. Like, why would I waste the money and not do the work?
Usually that's enough. Usually it is enough.
Right. And then the situation I gave you with my friend's son, that's more of a praise thing, right? Like he just wants my approval and that's enough for him to keep on moving forward in this case. But understanding what motivates you is super important. What I've come to understand being a paid coach for years and also being coach for more than 14 years now is that every semester with my personal coaches, what they always do is they'll tell me, okay, what are your top 2 goals for the semester? And then what reward or consequence are you going to put for yourself to do it? And I've shared this with you personally before, but when I look back at the 10-year mark, so it's been 14 years now, but the 10-year mark, you know, I was really looking at what kind of successes and failures I'd had in the last 10 years. I'm a weirdo and I like look at that stuff. And the thing that really stood out to me is almost every time that I put out a reward with whatever the goal was, I almost never achieved the goal, right? Because the reward wasn't what motivated me. It wasn't big enough. You know, In some cases, I went and did it anyways.
Did it anyway, yeah.
Right, if I do X, Y, and Z, then I'll go on this
piece.
trip. And then you plan the trip, and then you don't hit it, and you go on the trip
And you go on
anyways,
anyway,
right?
yeah.
So what I found is that was not a motivator for me. So a lot of people say, use those words, if I, then I'll do this. And that works for some people, but I would argue most it doesn't. On the flip side, whenever I put a consequence, if it was a weak consequence, I almost always never did it also, right? Meaning you've heard the story of there was right about that same time, going back to weight, back at when I was 37, 38, there were three of my buddies, three coaches actually, and we're sitting around and we were all looking at each other and drinking beers, and we're looking at each other like, man, you're fat. And the next day I was like, yeah, you're fat too.
Fatty?
And we went around the corners and finally we said, oh, hey, listen, we're going to see each other in 6 months again. And so let's all bet $500 and we'll put $500 out there, and whoever loses the most weight by the next summit wins all the money, right? And there was actually four of us. There's three other guys. And so we showed up 6 months later, no one lost weight. Because the four of us happen to be financially pretty okay.
Just write the check.
So we're like, screw it, we'll just write the $500 check to charity. I don't care. I'd rather eat, drink, be merry, and have fun, right?
Yeah. And it's going to charity.
And it really bothered all of us because we're coaches, right? And so literally on the spot, when we realized that no one achieved their goals, we all put up $10,000. So we all said, okay, $10,000 bet, 20 pounds must lose by 6 months from now. And of the four of us, how many of us didn't lose 20 pounds?
I mean,
we all lost 20 pounds. In fact, one guy, I remember the last 6 hours sitting in a sauna trying to sweat off the last 3 pounds, right? But my point was, when the consequence was high enough, I almost always hit my goals, almost always. Take away hunting privileges for me, I'm going to do the job. Yeah. Make me give a big financial donation to a political party I don't agree with.
That is probably the funniest thing I've ever heard y'all
make me donate money to a school that is not the school that I want my kids to go to. I will definitely get the job done. So those are the accountabilities that I'm talking about. It's not just I wish, pray, and hope and cross my fingers I'm going to do this, but unless somebody that's going to hold you accountable and make you pay the piper.
I love that. And then the only other thing so for me, I don't really... Okay, so I think it goes back to first aligning the right why. And I know that has been able to keep me on track this year specifically more often, or for the majority of the time. There's been definitely a few slip backs or slip offs, but the ability to get back on track has been fundamentally different and easier because I just have to remind myself of the why and what example would I be setting if I just let myself completely throw all this hard work away, right? So first starting with the why I think is huge, and making sure it's for the right reasons, and using that as motivation to stay on track or get back on track. But the other piece is, if you are going to do some sort of a reward, one thing I did was I had my treadmill in my bedroom. And I know that is not a great place for workout equipment, right? So at the end of 2 months, when I'm still working out consistently, let's transform a room in the house into a little gym. So that is in alignment with still completing the goal, and the reward matches, right? So I think that's a really nice way to look at it too, is that what can you do, getting new workout clothes, right? They're expensive. They're fun to buy. Getting a brand new pair of super cool tennis shoes or some Lululemon stuff that's a little bit you wouldn't normally spend on yourself. I like that idea too, as far as how to reward yourself for the things that you're doing. And then hiring or bartering. I know for sure I have in the past gotten really hung up on the cost associated with things. So I want to hire a nutritionist. I want to hire a personal trainer. And when I think about the cost of those things, it just irks. It's hard to be able to stomach spending that money. And so a lot of times that can be an instant stop or a derail for a lot of people. Well, I don't know enough about nutrition, so therefore, that's a bust. That idea is a bust. I can't afford a personal trainer to come to my house, so that idea is a bust. So, or a financial advisor or whatever. the idea of bartering is so powerful, and it has become truly one of my most favorite ways to negotiate with people and set up relationships.
Just trading services.
And it's kind of fun too, because the conversation will be like, well, I don't know. Do you want to barter in some way? Well, I don't know. I don't know what I have to offer. Well, let's just talk through it. Right? Like, and sometimes it's like, well, I have a beach house. Do you want to like use the beach house? I'm like, hell yeah, I want to use the beach house. So there's, it's a fun conversation to have. And, it's cool. So think outside of having to spend money on things and entering into relationships with people that you both can, you're both giving, you're both gaining, and that makes it really fun too. So
I love it.
So yeah, recruiting accountability and getting your support. The only thing that we didn't talk about was, as far as your family goes, I do think it's important to share what you want to accomplish with your family. You don't need them to be your accountability partners per se, but letting them know what you're doing and why you're doing it, and then sharing your successes along the way. Gosh, they'll be your biggest cheerleaders, right? And in a lot of cases, specifically talking about food and nutrition, I'm not, Randy does he does all of the cooking and a lot of the grocery shopping. So I need him on board so that he can help support in the food area, right? And so not forcing anybody in your inner circle to be an accountability partner, but just to be your cheerleader and like to tell you that you're awesome.
Like when I was on a carb kick, I guess Aubrey overheard it. I don't remember telling her, but every time that, Chris would make cookies and the other kids were eating it, and I'd go pick up a cookie, Aubrey would be like, it's got carbs in there. It's like, darn it.
I know. They will. They'll help you.
It works.
They'll help you stay on track, and they love you, right? And so they'll be your biggest cheerleader, and you certainly don't want to disappoint. So if you see your kids,
just be a bad example in front of us.
Exactly. So no, I love it. So I think that really.
Step 3 is done. Get an accountability partner, hire, barter somebody, make sure you share your goals, make sure you share your intentions, and make sure you tell them why you want to do this and ask for their help, right?
Yep.
So
Love
3
it.
is behind us. Organize and prepare. So step number 4. Now we know what we want to do. We know why we want to do it. We've got somebody that's going to help us do it. Now you got to organize and prepare. So one of my favorite sayings, I don't know where I picked this up. It might be an original Josh thing, is a vision without a plan is just as work. Sorry, let me say it again. A vision without a plan is as worthless as a plan without execution. A vision without a plan is just as worthless as a plan without execution. So meaning, I want to achieve blank. Cool. There's your vision. How the hell are you going to do it?
Right.
So there's the plan, and then great. So now you have a vision. You know what to do. Now you got to do the freaking work.
Now you got to do the work.
So I think it's super important. And this is one of the things when it comes down to organizing, preparing, it goes back to the whole concept is we're trying to set ourselves up for success. And this goes back to, I believe, whatever the most important 1 or 2 things that you're trying to achieve should be the first things you do every day.
Yeah.
But let's kind of work through this. I'll let you start this one since I started the last one.
Okay. So some of the notes, calendaring. So I know that our culture, meaning like our team culture, even our relationship and dynamic culture, everything goes on the calendar. We have reflected, and I've even pulled that into my family. So
Christy calls Katie, my secretary, to plan dates. Like she doesn't call me to find out when I'll be home. She just calls Katie and puts it on the calendar what time I need to leave for a school event. She just tells Katie.
Absolutely.
I follow my calendar.
Follow the calendar. And so I started kind of pushing this into my personal life too. And it's really funny. So our Randy got really good about putting everything on our shared calendar as our family shared calendar. And then my phone, I'm not able to sync it anymore. So I really had kind of stopped looking at that calendar. And he totally busted my chops the other day. He's like, what do you mean? Like, it's on the calendar. Are you not looking at the calendar? I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like, actually, it's not syncing anymore. So anyways, it's so finding a place to to house everything that's important and that can be visible to the people that are involved or need to know where you're going to be so everybody can plan and work around together. So use your calendars.
Can I make an asterisk there for viewers?
Yeah.
So whoever's listening, I want you to write this one statement down. Your calendar is a reflection of your priorities.
100%.
Your calendar is a reflection of your priorities.
And I think Lindsay, our friend Lindsay said, what story does your calendar tell?
Oh, I love that.
I love that she said that because it is
Lindsay
so
Earhart?
true. Yes.
That's awesome.
Lindsay Earhart, if you look at your calendar, what story does it tell? And that is such a beautiful way to keep yourself in check. Once a week, at the end of the week, at the beginning of the week, whenever, take a look at your calendar and say, if I didn't know me, what would I think that this person did all week long, right? And what does it show are your priorities? What's first in the morning? Do you have family time written in there? Do you have, time to work on your business, in your business? Do you have time set aside to review your budget, have spiritual time in the morning, work out, all of those things? So I love that. So think about, if you didn't know you and you looked at your calendar, what would it show? Is it completely blank? So I love that. But yes, reflection of your priorities. This one I know is really near and dear to my heart because it rings true to our dynamic is knowing your pace and your limits. And I think this is important because especially if you work on a team, if you work closely with somebody else, understanding what each other's limits and paces are, because a lot of times we are going to try to match and mirror the other's pace. And it can be both ways, right? I can try to speed up to you, or you could try to slow down to me, whatever it is. And neither one makes any sense. You need to understand and do and operate where you are the most comfortable, because that's where you're going to be the most efficient. It's where you're going to be the most present. It's where you're going to feel the best and healthiest from a rest and mind space capacity, all of that. And so I always say, Josh he can operate at a much higher pace and capacity than I can from a standpoint of appointments during the day. So I really tap out about 5 appointments, and because mine are a little bit longer. I tend to talk a little bit more than Josh. I also need a little bit more time to go through my text messages and go through my emails. I just have a little bit of a slower pace. Doesn't mean that I don't get as much done. But you tend to just operate more quickly. I, for years, tried to keep up with that pace and did, but it did not make me feel good, right? I was literally, it's like I was I was sprinting all day and just crashing at the end. And so that's not good long-term. And so when I really understood where my sweet spot was, as far as this is really where I operate the best, I'm the happiest, healthiest, people get the best version of me. These are the parameters. It was really, it was eye-opening, it was also very freeing. And you were totally understanding of that, right? And so I think you can't underestimate if the person that you're trying to keep up with or trying to match or mirror, I don't think anyone expects everybody to operate at the same capacity levels as each other all the time, as long as everything's getting done. So if you know that you are an early riser, then do your most important, or you operate best in the mornings, which I tend to do my best work in the morning time frame up until about 2:00. That's where all the important stuff needs to be done. It's where I need to work out. It's where I need to spend time, doing the prospecting, making calls. I need to basically give my energy in those hours to the things that are the absolute most important, because the energy levels will die off throughout the day. And then, as funny as it is, I do kind of catch a second wind, and it tends to be later in the evening. So as soon as kids are in bed, and I have a moment just to kind of breathe, about 30 minutes after everything is settled down, here comes my second wind. And so typically there's some work that can be done there. But just paying attention to what your cadence is and what that looks like for you, I think is really huge. So What did I miss?
You didn't miss a lot. I think it's, I think what whoever is listening is hearing is like I live and die by my calendar. If it's not on it, and I know you do the same, but if it's not on it, it doesn't exist.
It just doesn't exist.
But what's really interesting, why this is such an important, valid point to not skip over, because it's amazing to me how, like, there's still people that live in the dark ages, I'm not going to name names, that are literally using, wall calendars and writing on the wall. But that's still better than the rest of the people that don't even have a calendar, right?
It's written
like
down.
And especially when there's professional, my industry, there's lots of, realtors, lenders, and title companies. And, there's always a top 10% and a bottom 90%. And I'll tell you what a lot of the bottom 90% have in common is they don't freaking follow a calendar. How do I know that? Because they miss appointments.
I just don't even know how you remember.
You can't.
How do you remember?
You cannot operate at any decent level without a calendar. And so the reason why I started with the calendar's reflection of your priorities is this. When you sit down like you're doing right now, going through your goals, defining what you want, if you look at your calendar and there's nothing that you accomplished today to move the needle towards that, what the hell did you waste your day on?
I mean,
like, what was the effing point?
Yeah.
That's the problem. And so, as a somebody that takes coaching very seriously for myself and for others, it's a really easy thing. Like, I see a lot of busy people in the world. Great. What the fuck did you do today to get the goal that you wanted? Because if you did nothing for a day, a week, or a month, then you don't really give a shit about the goal and the outcome anyways. At least that's what your calendar's telling me, right? So the thing I always try to remind myself is get mine first, right? So it's important to me to work out, so I do it in the morning. It's important for me to read, so I do it in the morning. It's important for me to do some meditation or spiritual reading. I do that in the morning, right? I know that as a salesperson, because I am a professional salesperson, it's important for me to make lots of outbound phone calls. I do those in the morning, because the rest of the day, somebody's going to screw it up. Somebody's going to need
100%.
something. Let me just talk about emails for a second, because that's the death of the world, that and text messages. When people get up in the morning, what I see a very common thread is that the first thing they do is they start, right when they get to work, first thing they do is they look at their emails and their text, and they start immediately responding to those emails and texts. And so what that literally is saying is that person who emailed you's priorities is more important than your priorities. Yeah. You're literally letting them disrupt what you say is the most important thing. And so a great tactic is don't look. Just don't look until 9:00 or whatever time you can live with, so you can get all your stuff done in the morning first, right?
How freeing. And I challenge people to do that.
Yeah, and everyone says they can't. Oh, it's not great service.
You can. You totally can. And I read one of Ivanka Trump's books. And by the way, she has some fantastic books. And she's just a beast of a human. Love her. And she literally...
No political statements.
What?
No political statements.
No. It's
I'm
not
joking. I'm joking.
You're not going to hear any political statements out of me. I promise that. One of her books talks about specifically around email, in that she is limited. She works in the morning, one time in the afternoon or around lunchtime, and then again before she leaves the day. That's it. Mm-hmm. And I know that there are people that literally the email is their dictation of the entire day. Mm-hmm. Their email dictates their entire day.
They're just reacting all day. They're not getting anything
all
done.
Day.
Yep.
And so I didn't truly consciously make the decision to treat my email this way, but subconsciously I started kind of falling into those categories once in the morning just to kind of see. And then once you look at it again at lunchtime and there's nothing pressing, it is really just a 411 box. Just an information box, right? It is literally life-changing. Mm-hmm. It is life-changing. So anyways.
Yeah. So as you keep on going through that, yes, what you have to create some space to catch up, because there are some pressing matters. So if you never look at your email or text, then especially in the service industry, you can make a mistake. What I would say though, in most service industries, most as in 99.9, there's nothing that cannot wait for 2 hours.
Well, and here's the thing.
There's almost nothing.
If there's something that is a true emergency,
they'll call.
Don't you think they're going to call?
They're going to call. Yep.
They're going to call.
And so, with that being said, what you do is you create catch-up time on your calendar. If you're really on it, I'll use my buddy Tad Chapman. So Tad Chapman, if you call his voicemail right now, it will tell you exactly what his day looks like. So it'll always change every single day. He records it every single morning, and all it says is, hope you're having a great day. He's a realtor, by the way. It's a great day to buy real estate. And I've got a full day today. If you need immediate assistance, call my team. Here's the office number. I will be returning calls between 12 and 1 and again between 5 and 6. And so, people, when they hear a message like that on the voicemail, separate an email, or you can do these auto reply emails that say the exact same thing.
Right.
They don't really expect things to get back to, but if there's no known callback time, then they want it right now, right? It's the moment, it's the information
Absolutely.
age where people expect things instantaneously. But if they get that instantaneous voicemail or autoresponder that says, I'll call you back between 12 and 1, and you do, you'll be just
That's
fine.
the thing.
You'll be just fine.
You have
to do what you say you're going to do.
You have to do it.
I think those are super important. And then you can use alarms in this as well. So
this is one thing I have super adopted this year,
the alarms?
is the use of alarms.
That's
and
good.
not for the traditional things, right? And that's what we're going to talk about. Gratitude reminders. Who has a alarm that goes off throughout the day that says, hey, count your blessings. Like, pick one thing that you are really grateful
awesome.
for today. I mean,
that's awesome.
And you guys, business is hard. COVID is hard. There's a lot going on right now and things get very crazy. And the ability to slip into a very dark, weird, negative place is just a very real concept.
Yep.
And finding the win in every day, finding something to be grateful for, it really can put things in perspective and say, you know what, you really don't have anything to bitch about.
Yep.
Like,
there's
get
a
your
really
panties.
easy, I love that you said that. There's a really easy exercise to do it. And I think this is where people get really screwed up. So turn over your piece of paper, Brynn, put a dot in the middle of it. What are you looking at?
The dots.
What are you not looking at?
All of this.
Right.
Yeah.
So any of you can do this, and here's the point.
And
so
here's your kids.
You're pissed off about You're pissed off about this one thing. You're sad about this one thing. The dot in the middle of the page, and you're forgetting to be grateful for. We live in America. No one's invaded our borders recently.
Right.
You can literally have food delivered to you in 2 hours with Instacart or whatever.
Seriously.
Like, there are, hopefully, God forbid, your family and your kids are healthy. You just go down that list. Like, I can still walk. I've been an idiot growing up, like skiing off cliffs and doing crazy things that I very realistically could have been paralyzed and not walked away from, and I can still walk. And
how you're still living. That should be a podcast story. Josh's near-death
all the near-death experiences. There's been a few, not many of it I'm proud of also, but and I'll just use this as an example. And this isn't trying to be a political statement, but I think it's a good reminder for people. So, a week ago, there was a very unfortunate death in Minnesota, right? Once again, a black guy gets killed by a couple cops. And obviously, I believe that 99.99% of cops out there are amazing individuals that we need, that put their lives in harm's way. And this one guy screwed up badly. So I am not a judge and jury, but I did have a conversation with two of my friends that are police officers. They believe that he did wrong, whether you call it murder or not. I'm not the judge and jury. What really frustrates me is that, the fucking city burned. Okay? The city burned because one cop did one bad thing to one person, right? And this is not a Black Lives Matter conversation, but what I'm trying to get at is that the actions, burning down the entire police precinct, throw like individuals on the street yelling and spitting in the faces of police officers who might have been the guy that just saved your life and you didn't know it because they put in handcuffs a murderer the week before.
Right.
You're so focused on the dot and not the page, the blank page, that you regress back into acting like freaking animals. And that's just a lack of gratitude.
Yeah.
And so those are the type of things that I think you have to remind yourself of because, there's a lot of bad shit that happens in the world. There's a lot of bad choices. People are people. People are capable of making bad choices. If you are religious, Adam ate the freaking apple, right? There is evil in the world. But I also believe that people are inherently good.
Yeah.
And keep focus on that piece.
Keep focus on that,
and it will work out long term, right?
Absolutely.
So when I love that you have the gratitude reminders. I think there's a stand up, like one of the things I wrote down is, as you go through your day and maybe you're frustrated because you didn't get done what you were hoping to get done for whatever that one thing is you're trying to work on in the morning. And if that's eating at you, stand up and walk. Stand up and walk away. Yeah. Stand up and shut off your phone. But as far as this whole concept of getting things done and making sure that you prioritize and organize and prepare, one piece of this is a story that one of my mentors, Rick Ruby, told me, which is he had a dad that was, I guess, like a mechanic. From a standpoint of in the garage, he had these boxes, and in this box, there was all these plumbing parts. In this box, there's all these electrical parts. And in this box, there's all these AC parts. And in this box, nuts and bolts and so on. And lawnmower parts, right? And so he remembers that he'd go out and, if somebody's broken, he'd see his dad pull out the box.
Yeah.
Fix the freaking lawnmower, stay there till the lawnmower is fixed, and then put the box back, right? What I know a lot of people do is they've got all the fucking boxes out and all the pieces everywhere, and they wonder why they're feeling frustrated.
Right.
And so it's that kind of thought process when you go to structure your day and creating space for yourself, but also creating the time to do the actions that you need to get done. In an hour's time, I'll just do this as an example. So you and I have been sitting here for about an hour. So in the last 1 hour, I have 8 new texts, 4 missed calls that have left voice messages. And I've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 22 emails. And none of them have gotten in the way of this.
Right.
Because I'm compartmentalizing.
The
reason I'm compartmentalizing is because right this freaking second, the only thing that matters is this. And when this is done, I will put the box away and I'll look at my calendar and it'll tell me what box to open, right? And that's the type of stuff that I think is important in getting things done. When you go to, if you want to get in shape, you do meal prep on Sunday so you don't think about what you're going to eat all day long.
I love the box analogy.
If you're going to... if it's a sales thing, don't have prospecting time for an hour or two. Early on the week or last week, go ahead and create your list. So, in my calendar, my list, like if I'm going to call agents for an hour, right?
Yeah.
It's literally the name and number, and the number is hyperlinked inside that calendar event. So I don't have to think about it when I call. I just go down and hit the next number and hit the next number and hit the next number, right? When it comes to,
one thing too that probably one of the first things you taught me when I came to work with you or work for you is don't overthink it. Keep it simple. Something is better than nothing.
Take action, start driving.
Right. And so I think a lot of us have the ability to really, really, really overthink things. And what is it? Paralysis paralysis. Paralysis of analysis. Something is better than nothing. And just taking action and getting those things done is huge. To stop thinking about it, because as soon as you do something, you make some effort towards whatever initiative or goal that you have, the endorphins are released into your brain and it feels good. So get those endorphins pumping as quickly as possible, because that's going to, your body's going to want more of that. And so the chances of you continuing are much higher. So
a couple last thoughts on this organization part. One thing I think is super important is to declutter in general, right? So you're filling in your calendar and you're prioritizing what you should do first, ideally, not always. You can one thing I prioritized last year is I wanted to coach my kids. So I wanted to coach and, assistant coach in basketball and baseball and things like that. And you can't do that at 7:00 in the morning, right?
Yeah.
So I get that you can't always do that first thing in the morning, but depending on what your life is like. But as you load these things in, you also have to get stuff out of it. And there's a concept, I forget where I heard it, but there's basically a finite number of choices and decisions everybody
actually just
can
wrote
make.
That down.
There's a finite number of choices you can make in a day before you get exhaustion, fatigue of making decisions, right? And so the whole idea when you get into this organizational phase is...
This is in the book Game Changers.
That's what it was.
I started reading it.
That's great.
I started reading it.
It's a great book. It's exactly what it was.
One first or second chapters.
Yeah. So the whole idea is that if you've got 50 decisions you can make for your pace, remember everyone's different. So you can make 50 decisions a day. Let's not choose what we're going to wear today. Like if you're going to sit there and put on 3 different, dresses and take them off and put on 3 different pairs of slacks and then take them off and then like you're making choices and wasting it. Right. So the idea, I know it's easier said than done, is thank God I'm colorblind in a couple areas. But at this point, if you go to my closet, like it's basically blues, grays, and greens. Yeah. And they kind of all go together. So you should be able to walk in, grab a shirt and a pair of pants.
And it should work.
and walk out and it's done. So I'm not wasting time there. When you, we'll just say,
oh gosh, where are you
mothers, Suburbans are a place where people's hopes and dreams go to die. Right? Like I don't understand how that much destruction can be created in that small of a space where there's mothers with young children.
Hopes and dreams.
Right. I can't get inside of my wife's car sometimes when it's been too long. So I have to go get it detailed. Like I have to empty it. I have to get it done. Right. Because if I remove all that stuff, I feel serene. I feel calm. But that also applies towards your office. It applies towards your car. It applies towards your closet. It applies towards your drawers.
Right.
The more you can organize,
bag, your purse, everything
simplify,
needs to be,
simplify.
I heard. I want to say this was probably like on Oprah back in the day. That wherever you enter your house through, so if you go through your garage or if you go through your front door, wherever, it's really important that space is clean, organized, and ready to accept you. And I love that thought process. So if you go through your garage, then make sure that things are put away. There's a nice path for you to get, to your door.
A path is a more realistic answer.
Right, exactly. Well, or here's the thing, or avoid it altogether. Like there's something called the avoidance strategy.
That's funny.
And this is
out of sight, out of mind.
Well, I know that the garage is not a great place for organization in our household. It is also my husband's space. That is his place. So I really try to let him keep it however he wants to keep it. Right. And I just don't go in there. Like if that's what he wants, that's how he can have it. But so I go through the front door, but I make sure that, we've got our little mudroom area. It's all set up. We enter into the formal, it's beautiful, it smells nice, and that's accepting me into the house for the day. So I think that is huge. I love going back to the decisions that you can make. So picking out outfits or having a rough outline of what you're going to wear for the week. Some of the most successful people in the world have uniforms, right? So this is my shirt that I like, and these are the pants I like, and I have multiple of those. Or on Sunday, here's a rough outline of what I'm going to wear. Meal prepping is obviously huge. Preparing lists. For me, my car, my office, and my work bags are the most important. So for me to feel prepared for the next day and ready to take it on. So every day, at the end of the day, when I get home, everything comes out of my car. I spend a lot of time in my car. So there's, it's a thing. I have to go through get all the trash out and reset. I definitely have to do that with my work bag. So I can take on the next day and feel really, really good about it.
Yep. The last thing I would add on when you're dealing with your calendar to organize it, again, this goes back to putting your plan on your calendar, right? So if you're going to work out, you're going to work out 3 days a week. The thing that I'm really cognizant of myself, and it's a function of not having enough time, right? Like if I could print more time, I would. I don't need a whole lot of sleep. So if I could, if I didn't have a wife and kids and I would always choose them over it, I could absolutely be the workaholic. I've been that in my past. Yeah. My point is that you've got to be able to look at and identify your pinch points. When you look at your calendar at a glance and you're like, okay, there's just not enough time to get everything done. Like that's going to be a problem.
That is
when you look
at
it up front, you can adjust accordingly and prioritize correctly. When you're in the heat of the moment and you've overcommitted yourself for whatever, usually because most people are not that selfish, the thing that you give up on is what was going to make you happy. Right?
That's so true.
Think about like the best laid intentions of, you're going to work out on the way home. but you got to make dinner for the kids at 6:30, right?
Right.
So there's this last minute work need. The boss asked for blank or whatever else. Client runs a little bit late. So you're like, oh, no big deal. I'll take care of it. And so now all of a sudden you're leaving the office 30 minutes late. Well, guess what was given up? That was
your time.
Your time for you to get, your hour of workout. And that was important to you, or whatever. So when you look at your calendar and you see, hey, this is kind of going to be crunchy right here.
This is going to be a problem.
If you look at it in advance, you can make some moves to make sure that you protect what is most important, because the only grade that I think is important, the only grade is, did you do something today to move the needle towards what you want? End of story.
Yeah.
If you did, kudos. I don't care how good or bad of a day you think it was, kudos. And if you didn't, poor job.
Yeah.
Poor planning. But recover quickly, be the damn buffalo, and get back at it tomorrow.
Be the buffalo.
So I'm done with this section if you are.
Yes, absolutely.
So we'll move in the last section, step 5, which is identify where you will struggle, right?
Oh, man.
This is, again, the last piece of the planning stage, because, we went from the vision and steps basically 1 and 2 to the planning for 2, 3, and for 3, 4, and 5. And then you'll be prepared, but I can't make you do the work, right? So you have to execute whatever the plan is. But it's really important to understand why you've struggled in the past and where you think you're going to struggle this time around, which comes back to, in large part, emotional issues, right? We all have them, by the way. This is not me attacking emotional people. I am still a young kid at heart too. I think if I were to really define the 2 biggest fears I currently have, it'd be fear of failure and fear of letting people down. And I probably would switch them now. I think my biggest fear is letting other people down. So my point in doing this is, if you have that fear of letting other people down, then you might not commit to a big enough goal. As an example, I can think about personal production on my loan team as an example. Like, I want to run. Like, I just want to run. Because I'm a natural competitor. But there's also goals that I know my team, like a lot of people on my team, do. It does more damage to miss the goal by a percentage point than it is to the benefits of exceeding the goal.
What is it? Shoot for the stars. Shoot for the moon, land among the stars.
Shoot for the stars, land on the moon.
Shoot for the moon, land on, right?
Well, the stars are further away. So if you shoot for the stars and you come up short, that means you'd land on the moon.
But the moon is you have to land, or anyway.
I think you're
I'm thinking
wrong.
like a bed of stars.
If you will like or comment on this one, let's just make sure. I could be wrong. I admit I could be wrong. I think logically it would be shoot for the stars and you would land on the moon, because if you come up short, you're still in the fucking moon. Yeah, but
you have to be there's only one moon.
If I shoot for the moon and I come up short, where am I? I'm not among the stars.
I don't know. I'm not like an astrologist.
Clearly. We'll go with that. So let's focus on step 5, which you're good at. Let's not talk about astrology, okay? So
is it astronomy or astrology? Okay. Anyways.
Okay. You're embarrassing me, Smalls.
I'm sorry. Okay. What are you afraid of?
Yeah. So
what is it that you're afraid of? Looking stupid?
Right. Being embarrassed.
Being embarrassed. Is that, he always tells me, you're embarrassing. Oh, is that why do I embarrass you?
No, it's actually quite endearing.
I know.
A lot of people's hang up, by the way, is fear of success.
This is so interesting.
It's a weird one. This is self-sabotage along the way.
Oh my gosh. I literally I can think of one person that gets so close to the goal, and then boom, misses it. And it is literally like, it is like they're doing it on purpose. It's crazy. And it's such an interesting thing. You have to talk me through it. I don't understand. Where does this come? Like, where does the fear of success come from? Like, you don't deserve it?
I'm not a psychologist, but what I've come to understand from books I've read and I believe in is that it comes back to how we define success.
Okay.
And usually people associate success with whatever the most that whoever brought them up, whoever made the most. If they can just do that, they're successful, right?
Right.
So if daddy made $50,000 a year, making 51,000 is successful, right?
Right.
If their daddy made 150,000, then 151 is successful, right? Mm-hmm. And so there is a big piece of it I find, especially in different industries, is not feeling deserving of it, right? They're not deserving of the success because, I'll just use different financial industries. So stockbrokers or, bond traders or mortgage loan officers, things like that, right? I see people digging ditches on the side of the road. They are for sure working harder than me. They're for sure working harder than the stock.
Busting ass.
Right. And they're, you're driving into work and they're usually the first ones out, right? You see,
they've
construction
been out there
is 5 a.m. They're
Right.
moving and then they work, here we are in Texas and there's tar on the ground and 105 degree heat.
So
I
hot.
can't imagine. And yet, a stockbroker or a mortgage guy might make more money than that person, right? So I do think that in some ways, like there is I don't deserve this mentality with a lot of people. Again, not a psychologist. Don't know where that would come from.
Maybe it comes from too. If I do this now, the bar there's a new level. There's a
Right,
new bar
expectations.
that I can't go under, and
Right.
that can be fearful too, because
For years I was afraid of not being relevant, of going backwards for years. So as we built our business and had somewhat of a following nationwide with other people in the industry, the fear of the fall was a big driver.
super interesting.
So it's a lot easier to never achieve and never have anything to prove. I've always said
no expectations.
There's no expectations, right?
Right.
So it's not a pride before the fall, but I would say it's a lot easier to be second or third and chase number one than it is to be number one.
Be number one and hold
then
it.
try and hold it, right? So
Yeah, because if you do it once and then you don't do it the next
so
next
I've
year,
been on both
whatever.
ends of that equation.
Yeah.
And it's such an interesting mentality. You've got nothing to lose, but number one's got to reprove it again next year, right?
So here's what I've really been thinking a lot about this, and it really goes back to what is your goal? So if you're not, let's say you didn't come in number one, but did you hit your goal? That should be the priority.
Well, it goes back to running your race, not somebody else's race.
Correct.
And
we
we've talked
a lot about the comparison and
comparison's a thief of joy.
Right. And so don't look at what number one did. The only comparison should be, did we hit our goal? Did we do what we set out to do? And if that's the case, boom, that is a huge success.
Yep. Now I do want to, there is a 1%er, right? So I do not want to argue with the Michael Jordans of the world. I do think that if you have that desire to be number one, then you must compare to number one.
Very
for
true.
Sure.
But
you better be clear.
But that goes back to your goal too, though.
Right.
If that's
And
the goal.
this is why I want to disseminate between the two, because if it is your desire to be number one and you're willing to do whatever it takes to be number one, you'd be foolish to not compare yourself to number one and look at what they're doing better than you, right? But I will tell you that when you interview or read or watch ESPN interviews of all the greats, most recently, coach of Alabama and the coach of the Patriots, 20 years careers already and greater than that. One of the things that they both say, if they say, going back to give themselves advice as younger men, is I wish I hadn't compared as much.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So if you're not enjoying the ride along the way, then what's the whole point? And so I do think that what you said is spot on. Look, recognize, game recognizes game, right?
Yeah.
But then when you're setting your own goals and you're setting your own rewards and your own consequences, and up front in a non-emotional state when you're making your plans and you're creating your plan to execute, if you're happy with the outcome, happy not satisfied is a good thing. It's like being happy with the outcome as you go. So the beautiful thing is you want to run a 5-minute mile, then you want to run a 4:45 mile, then a 4:30 mile. But if you've never run a 5-minute mile ever and you finally do it, be happy.
That's amazing.
Be happy. If my daughter all of a sudden thinks she wants to be a pole vaulter, which is kind of fun to think about. My wife is scared to death. I love it because I'm kind of a thrill seeker. So I'm
super cool.
Yeah, right. But where do you start? And it's like, well, she's trying to jump over a 5-foot pole to start with, right?
Yeah.
That's all it starts with. It's 5 or 6 feet. And then you watch, high schoolers that are hitting 8, 10,
How
12
high do
feet.
those things go? I don't even know.
I don't know the height. I think I've seen a 20-foot jump before in the Olympics. I think 18 to 22 feet, I think is how high they go. Somebody can correct me. It's
really
a whole lot higher than 6 feet, right?
That's you. You didn't jump over it.
If you're comparing yourself when you're first starting off to the guy that's doing the 20-foot jump, you're not going to get past the 6 foot because you're going to give up early, right? And that's what the key is what I do believe in, going back to competition is a great motivator, is if you're in a company where there is a list, don't compare yourself to the number one person, compare yourself to the next person in front of you.
Yeah.
And just beat that guy, right? So I'm going to tell a little secret.
I've set your goals
to beat that person.
Right.
So I'll tell a little secret that I help my kids with to help them make sports teams, right? So, if you're not the best person in basketball or the best person in volleyball, you don't have to be the best, but you better be the best 5. The best 5 start, right?
Got it.
You don't have to be the best, but you better be the best 5. So all you're looking at is, well, who currently is in the top 5, and can you stay for sure above the 5th spot? Can you take that person's spot? And so when you do that, then you're always, what I told my daughter as an example is identify who you think the 5th person is on the team, and always run and practice next to them. And no, they won't even know that you're playing the game. But if the coaches are watching, which they always are, and they're always watching you, that give that extra little sprint, and you are a little bit more motivated, and you're just outplaying that person side by side daily, and the other person doesn't even know that they're running a race, you have a better chance of winning. And so I love that. In fact, years ago, there was a guy that I wanted to beat in the industry that was in a different city. He didn't even know this, but I got a dartboard of his face.
So funny.
And the dartboard of his face was in the office, and I used to throw darts at the guy's face because I wanted to beat the guy, right?
Yeah.
So he didn't even have to know it. But so I do think competition's good if it's healthy competition. I don't know if throwing darts at somebody's face is healthy, but it was healthy.
And then we go into what you define as healthy.
Right. But it does work. So I love what you said, but it is your race. And at the end of the day,
race.
And growth is growth. And what I tell a lot of people is just fall forward.
Yeah.
You're going to fall. Yeah. Just fall forward. Do a little bit better and a little better. And
Absolutely.
A little bit better done a long time wins.
I love it.
Right?
So basically, we said, what are you afraid of? So we have success, failure, letting people down, and being embarrassed that this may be the 10th time you've tried to accomplish this goal.
Yeah, so why even bother?
Or why tell people?
Yeah, don't tell anybody. The last 5 times I had the New Year's resolution, losing 5 pounds, I quit not drinking. That's a bad one. The last 5 times I was not going to drink for a month. Day 3 I quit. Right?
Yeah. And
so don't tell
here
anybody.
We go again. Here we go again. But the idea is, it's your race. It's your game. Don't be embarrassed. Be proud that you have the resilience and the persistent behavior to try again, right? Reframe it. But as far as being honest with yourself about what you are up against and what challenges you're going to encounter along the way, just puts you that much further ahead and staring it in the eyes, right? Like, I'm not ignoring you. I know that you are going to be an issue. Yeah, I see you, and then you can move past.
One of the ones I've seen for myself that I see in a lot of people as well, and if this will probably speak to a whole lot of people. People are willing to do the work when they have to, but when things start to get good, they stop. Yeah, right. So you can use that in a lot of different scenarios as an example. Somebody that's furloughed, they'll budget. They'll budget for sure.
Yeah.
The job starts again. Does the budget continue?
Right.
Most of the time, not. Somebody that is a heart attack risk or diabetic risk.
Yeah.
They'll probably start working on their diet until they get the green light of, hey, you're doing great. And then all of a sudden they get a little loosey-goosey with their diet, right?
Yeah, so true.
In sales and in business for sure, it's amazing what marketing teams and sales teams will do when they're looking at next month and the pipeline is all dry.
It's like, go.
But then when business is good, marketing teams and sales teams usually slow down the exact reason why they're busy in the first place. And so to me, that's an important obstacle that people need to recognize.
Yes.
So that you can catch yourself before you go back the other way.
Yeah.
And so putting something in place like, whether it's the accountability partner telling them, hey, this has been a problem in the past that I've screwed up a lot on.
Oh, that's a good
So
thing,
when you start to see this tail off, like hammer me, or as a reminder, something. You just have to recognize that's a big problem for a lot of people.
It is a big problem. Gosh, there was something that entered my mind that I was going to say, and I can't remember. Okay. I think the last two are really pretty. I mean, I think we've kind of talked about them.
Let's pause for a second. We're at an hour and 15, right? Yeah. Why don't we make 6 and 7 one more podcast and just do it right now? Because we natural stop. Let's pick up 6 and 7.
Okay.
What do you think?
Yeah.
You want to make 6 and 7 a new episode?
Yeah. Okay. What do you think? Because we were going to do one anyways. We've only got 45 minutes left. Let's just finish it up.
You can do that, or you can just continue this one and make it long. I mean, you're already at, what do you think? It'll take you 6 and 7 how long?
Yeah. What do you think? So we have making it happen and review. I don't know.
I think that this is the execution piece.
Okay.
You can have one long episode, or you can have this long one and then one.
I think we do
Yeah,
one more episode.
let's stretch it out. Yeah. Stretch it out to a third episode.
Yep.
So do you want to close this out?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So we need to finish.
yeah. So what we'll do is I'll just close it out and say, man, time's getting away from us. Why don't we stop here, give some homework, and then, yeah, I got it. So when we keep diving into this, what's really super interesting to me is that, we got through the planning phase, like we said, the vision creation planning phase and the organization side of it. I was planning on stopping there with episode 2 being done.
Yeah.
I actually think the more we talk through this, that it's actually worth doing one more episode to focus on the execution part. That vision without a plan is as worthless as a plan without execution.
Yeah.
So we've got the vision plan done. I think we should just go ahead and do one more episode about the execution phase. So why don't we wrap up this second episode, and we'll do a episode 2B. To finish it up. But I want to give some homework around this as well, because I think it's really important. And that would be very simply to look at your calendar if you have one. Hopefully you have one.
So step 1, get a calendar.
Yeah, get a calendar, look at your calendar. I love what you said, Brynn, when you said if somebody randomly read your calendar, what would it tell you about you?
Yeah.
And if you don't like what you see, we got to change it. So then remember what I said, which is a calendar is a reflection of your priorities.
Totally.
So let's at least, if you do have a calendar, readjust when you get yours done and get yours done first. I'd love for everyone that's listening to do a little bit of decluttering. You know where you suck in this area, so let's go ahead and fix those areas. I'll give you an example
here. Blah, blah, somewhere. Oh my gosh, I can't even say.
It's all right. Let me finish.
As far as bartering or calling in people to help, I literally called one of my friends that is incredibly OCD and really organized.
That's
and
awesome.
said, come on over, girlfriend. I'll bring the champagne and some snacks. Let's get this closet organized. And she totally helped me color coordinate and get rid of stuff and declutter, and had a field day with it.
That's awesome.
So call in reinforcements if you need it.
Yep. So, you want to go back through that and get the calendar done, get your organization done, get your workspace decluttered, do whatever it takes to set yourself up for success.
Yes.
And then we'll see you next time on Sigman Sense, and we'll finish this kind of thought process with 2 additional steps for the actual implementation and the execution of your plan. If you're enjoying this so far, please like and subscribe, share with your friends.
Yes.
We hopefully will be around a year from now to keep on doing this for you all.
Let's do.
We'll see you next time on Sigman Sense.
Bye.
Thank you.